Happy Friday, Jamaica, and welcome to UIC Liberty TV and our regular Friday show, Jamaican Political Talk. So today we are continuing the conversation of our politics. And of course, a lot has been going on recently in the political world in our little, beautiful, wonderful island country, nation that we call Jamaica. Uh, I know the Prime Minister has been in the news a lot, uh, you know, with regards to various issues, including the Integrity Commission's report and so on. Tonight, we want to not necessarily delve too deep into the report of the IC. We want to take a different spin tonight. Good night, Jenny. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. And by the way, everyone, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so we can spread the good news. As I always say, can you imagine the impact that Jamaica would have on a global scale if another party other than the two main party becomes very prevalent and important, becomes win seats, become a part of the parliament to make changes to Jamaica's culture, Jamaica's socialization, Jamaica's wealth, Jamaica's prosperity, and so on. This can only be something that is positive for Jamaica. So like, share, subscribe to our channel and so on. But as I was saying, tonight we want to examine the tenure of the Prime Minister. Objectivity is the order of the night. So interestingly, I was having a conversation with someone recently, and we were talking about the UIC and Jamaica's politics and so on and so on and so on. And the person, we were speaking about just the idea of being non-partisan and so on and so on and so on. And the person said to me, Kevin, you're right. And here's how I see it. Oftentimes we're in Jamaica and, sometimes no matter what, we are blinded by the color that we support, whether that be orange, or whether that be green, or, whatever banner that we've traditionally been used to. And so it makes it difficult for us to see beyond that political affiliation. And so that political affiliation oftentimes block the path towards change and progress and so on and so on. And I think the discussion resonated with me because it's really true. And you can tell me whether you disagree or whether you agree in the comments and so on. But it's so true. It's so very true. And we're used to this in our political culture. And so no matter what, it makes it difficult for us. Oftentimes when our leaders do wrong, it's oftentimes only the opposition or only those who are not affiliated with that particular party that our leader or any other member of that party belongs to that opposes, or not necessarily oppose, but come forward and say, you know what? Traditionally, this is my party, or this is my family's party, or this is the party I usually vote for. However, I think the member of parliament or the prime minister should do the honorable thing. And once again, the prime minister have denied any wrongdoing and has decided to take the Integrity Commission through the legal system. And of course, the Prime Minister have a right to do that. And so in this discussion tonight, we want to we want to be objective. We want to be a little fair to the Prime Minister, but we also want to be fair to us, the Jamaican people. We want to be fair to our nation. Blessings, Kunta. Kunta Mandala says blessings in the chat. CMN, yes, we are politically blinded, sticking to that party no matter what they do. And that's exactly the point. That's exactly the focus that we want to have tonight. So we want to first of all start off by looking at some of the mishaps. I don't know what we want to call it. Mishaps, some people call it scandal, irregularities, situations that should not have been, whatever it is that you want to call it. You can call it whatever you want. But let's take a look at some of the issues that the administration, the Andrew Holness administration, have faced since the beginning of, or around the peak, or during a few years after gaining office and so on. But, and once again, it is oftentimes said out there, the Prime Minister have made some sort of accomplishment and achievement in office. But also people have said that the many scandals or mishaps or whatever it is that you want to call it have kind of stained the Prime Minister's reputation. And I want to be fair tonight. I want us Jamaicans to have a fair, reasonable conversation. I want us to kind of, act as if we're investigating whether or not we believe, and we're going to phrase it like this, whether or not we believe the Prime Minister should do the honorable thing. Because as Jamaicans, we have to reach this level of conversation where we can objectively, and we can have some sort of patriotic pride and say, you know what, even if I love the Prime Minister, even if I love this party, I love that party, for the interest of my country and for the status and how people see us from a global perspective, I think this is what should happen, or I think that is what should happen, or I think no matter what, the honorable thing must always be done. And once again, we're not criminalizing the Prime Minister, because I do believe in rehabilitation. I don't judge. Let me tell you how I view this political thing, or coming into politics, or whatever. Good evening, CMN, once again. I don't judge someone's past. Of course, that depends on what exactly is the past and how we assess the past. Before coming into politics and so on. I see people, the government criticizing Isaac Buchanan for representing the People's National Party for East Portland because of certain issues that he had with the law before coming into politics. For me, and you guys can tell me what you think, but for me, the important thing is, what do you do when you get into the politics, or when you started to represent people, or when the Jamaican people decided that I'm going to give you a chance to represent me? That's when I believe we start the assessment. So I believe in rehabilitation. I believe in certain circumstances, exoneration should happen. But I believe if you are in a position to represent the Jamaican people, and you decided that, okay, I'm taking this on, I take my oaths, I take everything, and then you break the trust of the Jamaican people, I think that's a different story. I think that's when the conversation starts, or should start. I want you to tell me what you think. Let me know what are your views in the comments about that. But in the meantime, let's take a look at some of the mishaps, if we want to call it that, of of the Andrew Holness administration. So let's talk now. Let's reason. Whether you like the Prime Minister or not, whether you are a supporter of the Jamaica Labour Party or not. You know, many, many years ago, someone very important in my life said, you know, I am a Jamaican first. And I never forgot it. Let me repeat it. I am a Jamaican first. And that person was deeply into one of the two main political parties. But after a while, they come to a conclusion that it's important to be a Jamaican first and foremost. And that is what this discussion is also about. So let's take a look at some of the mishaps of the Andrew Holness administration. And most of these have nothing directly to do with the Prime Minister, but more so under the leadership of the Prime Minister. And of course, the famous saying always goes, it always starts with the leader. Of course, no human is perfect and we're all flawed, but we want to admonish the ability of leadership of someone to rein in their people and to rein in their people and to have such good leadership skills that your people understand that what this mission is about and how we ought to conduct ourselves. And I think that's very important. Anyway, let's get to it for the fun. Okay, so let me that here. Okay, so let me cancel that. And so try to find that here. But in the meantime, Kunta Mandala has said how you are now is more important than how you were then. That's definitely true. So anyway, let me go ahead and play the video. So the Holness administration, it is said, a report in the Jamaica Gleaner have set the record for scandalous levels of resignations and dismissals while in office, and so we want to start with that. It doesn't look good. Many people say it's a bad look. There's Andrew Wheatley, who in 2018 was forced or faced with resignation. He was the Science and Technology Minister. Reports of cronyism, corruption, and so on at Petrojam. Then there's Royal Reed. Remember Royal Reed, the famous issues that were there. Mismanagement, misuse of public funds, at the Education Ministry. So these were in 2018 and so on. Of course, there's Robert Montague, who is very popular in the Jamaican circle. Mismanagement once again. He ended up resigning from the cabinet because of this. Then there was Floyd Green during the lockdown, the COVID times, when the government was telling everybody to be locked down, to stay in. Mr. Green was found partying without mask or without anything like that during the COVID time. Then there's Carl Samuda, father of Matthew Samuda. 2017, the Office of the Contractor General initiated an investigation into alleged impropriety in the award of contracts. Then there was J.C. Hutchinson, Industry, Commerce, Agriculture, and Fisheries Minister in 2020. Conflict of interest, claiming a Holland estate land deal. So once again, these are all under the Holness administration. Then there was the Speaker of the House who had to resign. Once again, here comes the Integrity Commission, The Speaker of the House forced to resign because they found her conduct to be inappropriate, offensive, illegal, and so on. Then there was Everett Warmington. Everybody know him as a firemouth man. And Warmington stated that he would withhold public funds from the opposition People's National Party in a certain constituency. So we're looking at some serious things that have gone on. So as was mentioned early on, the Prime Minister have achieved some stuff, have achieved stuff with the unemployment record and so on. However, tonight's discussion is really about the idea of whether or not the integrity of the Holness administration have been lost. Cherry says, yes, it's true. They need to be held accountable. Thank you, Cherry, for your comment. Good night, Janet. Good night, my fellow Uniters. She says, good to see you. Happy to have everyone here having this conversation. I hope to be joined by others as well on the panel. But in the meantime, we continue the discussion. So yes, so that's really what it's about. As I said, the ministers or the former ministers that I just showed have nothing directly to do with the Prime Minister. But now we realize the Prime Minister is dealing with his own issues. Now, somebody would say, well, this is how politics in Jamaica stay. If the PNP come in, the PNP are going to do the same thing. The JLP come in, the JLP do the same thing. As I remember the Prime Minister making a speech once and saying, well, if the PNP calling me scandalous and say I am the most scandalous Prime Minister Jamaica have ever seen, the Prime Minister then said, well, I want to let you know that the PNP is the most scandalous party in the history of the world, or something like that. But the idea is that how do us as regular Jamaicans, how do we view this? How do we play our part in the role of government? How do we contribute to making our leaders understand that they have to be held accountable and they have to act with utmost integrity, with utmost trustworthiness? We have to be able to trust them to allow them to continue to serve. Janet says, integrity and transparency and accountability are key to good governance in any organization. That is true. Very important. And I guess that's a part of the discussion that we're having tonight. Claudia Barrett, good night. Claudia Barrett says, good night, Uniters. Good night to you. CMN says, yes, we are politically blinded, sticking to that party no matter what they do. And that is sad. In some cases, we love the hype and the fun of the Jamaican politics and the partying and the kettle beating and so on. And while entertainment plays a part in any sphere of life that we live, but at the same time, while that's going on, Jamaica is not getting better for it. Examples of people who have recognized that their predecessors have done things that have not been right and have been unjust and exploitative against their people. They have made moves. I remember when the current Zambian president came in, he decided that he wanted to do things differently. He decided right away, I am not going to accept this, I'm not going to accept that perks or this perk. I want to be a different type of Prime Minister. I want to lead my country differently. And so I think, yeah, people may say, oh, people can talk anything they want, but when them get into politics, it's a different thing. And while that may be true, while that may be obviously true, Jamaicans, The idea is, if it does happen, we shouldn't tolerate it. We shouldn't accept it. And if we have a two-party dominated system, those of us who are disengaged or don't vote a lot, we need to vote. And so it's interesting. I know oftentimes there's a stench, and I've been having a lot of discussions about this too. Oftentimes there's a stench about having the diaspora voting and stuff like that. But I think that's a conversation that really, we need to have a discussion on, because if we have Jamaican people feeling oppressed in the present system and feeling like, one coming in, them thief, the next one coming in, them thief, and so forth, nothing now but change, then I think the diaspora will play, and I hope the diaspora is watching and hearing tonight, diaspora will play a very important part. And anybody, I want to say to the diaspora, the Jamaican diaspora overseas, any political party who is just there to meet and greet with you, but they're not really doing anything to try to get you engaged or having political representation. Because if you look at the United States of America, they allow that. You look at Canada, they allow that. You look at Britain, they allow that. They allow the diaspora in some way or another to participate, even in voting, even in political representation. Because we have to change the discourse. We have to redefine what is nationalism and what is, who is a patriot. If someone goes overseas, tell me what you think in the comments. If somebody goes overseas, them still love them country. Them just go. Listen, traveling and going overseas has been happening for thousands of years. Even in the Bible, when Abraham or Isaac or Jacob sent his sons out and said, boy, not go on right now. Go overseas and go look this, go look that. So really and truly, we need to have sensible discussions, but discussion that really benefits. Not discussions based on emotions, not discussions based on feelings, but on objectivity and that what benefits our country as a whole. But that's a different discussion for a different day. Juliet says, good night, everyone on the live. Bless up UIC for Jamaica. Vote, 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 vote UIC. Yes, Juliet, we're talking about whether or not the Prime Minister and the Holness administration should do the honorable thing and step aside. Tonight, Juliet, we're not having a discussion where we're trying to blast the Prime Minister or hate on the Prime Minister or hate on the GLB or hate on the PNP or hating on anyone. We want to have a very reflective discussion. We want to come to a conclusion by the end of the night of whether or not the administration or the Prime Minister should do the honorable thing and say, you know what, I love Jamaica. I love this job as a Prime Minister. I love what I did. I believe I had some accomplishment, but I want to be the bigger man. I want to show Jamaica that I have some sort of nobility and honor inside of me. If after the investigation, if we go through this process and the people feel that I have done wrong to the country, then I will step aside. Keisha San says, I'm a diaspora and I want to vote from abroad. I love my Jamaica and I want to have an impact, not just Western Union. Good point, Keisha San, not just Western Union. All right, that's a good one. Thank you for that laugh. Keisha San once again said, I think you should be honorable and step aside. Interesting. But well, Keisha, we want to discuss that tonight. And at the end of the night, we want to come to that conclusion, whether or not we believe that. Claudia Barrett, we need to join, volunteer, and pay your dues to help get Mr. Patterson into Parliament. And it's funny that you obviously this is a UIC platform, so I genuinely don't want anyone to think that I'm only speaking from biases, because tonight is a night. The theme of tonight's discussion is objectivity. But you think about a person such as Mr. Joseph Patterson, who come and with something different, have worked with a team, built a manifesto, put it out there, and said, "This is what we are about. This is the change you have." Who was arrested himself for standing up for Jamaicans. I think this counts for something, people. When we see ability in people and when we see good things in people, we should support them and we should support it. So interesting. So Jamaicans home and abroad, I wanted to spread the idea of the UIC and all that the UIC is doing. I wanted to spread that because, as I said, think about just early on today, I was having a conversation with someone. There's a lot of conversation I've been having, but I was having a conversation with someone, and I was saying, Jamaica is one of those few countries I know that they're not necessarily known for having wealth. But when you make, because most of the time you think about United States, people think about, okay, the economy and that there are an economic superpower and so. But we think about Jamaica, it's not just one thing you think about Jamaica. People, no matter what, you go all over the world, you mention Jamaica, you mention you come from Jamaica. You can see the look in their eyes because Jamaica is a special place. And I think Jamaica have done many special things. Its people, its culture, and so on. I think Jamaica needs to do one more special thing. Much more, but one more in particular. Show the world that we are a country who can actually accomplish this idea of having a third party be dominant in the Jamaican political sphere. That is something we can take out, we can go overseas, we can spread this abroad, we can talk about this. And all of us should come on board and fight for this. Because if we don't fight for it, if we don't join the UIC and support the UIC, because that's the only way it's going to happen, right? It's not going to happen if we say, boy, we love the UIC, we love the ideas, we love UIC, we want to go out and do this, do that. No, come and all the way we go out and do that, all the way we do this, and all the way. When the numbers spread, we're able to accomplish much more. So yes, Claudia Barrett, thank you for that. That's very, very important. Janet once again says there's no trust within the two politricksters parties. They are one and the same. No better herring, no better barrel. 80 years of the same mess. Time to vote them out. And I know every week, UIC fans, supporters come and we advocate this and we say this, and we must continue to say it because it's really true. It's very important. Okay, so Everton Jarrett says Andrew all the way. All right, Everton, tell me in the comments now. Tell me why you say Andrew all the way. Because as we said, the theme of tonight is an objective discussion. So Everton Jarrett, I'd love to hear more from you. Why? Obviously, Everton is a supporter of the government and the reigning party. So talk to us now, Everton. Let us hear why you say Andrew all the way. You know what I mean? And for the record, Mr. Holness is not a bad person as in his personality. I personally met Mr. Holness. He's not a bad person, but that is not what the discussion is about. The discussion is about leadership, trust, and whether or not our leaders should continue if there are evidence that there is mismanagement or that there is leadership that is not being held accountable or leadership that is not leading Jamaica in an honorable way. That's kind of like what this discussion is about, especially as we're going into the election, the general election next year. I want us to start having these discussions so we can come to these conclusions. You know what I mean? All right, Everton, you said nothing can stop Andrew from winning. I don't really know about that, but you're still not telling me, you're not answering. You're still not telling me why is it that you want to, what do you believe that Andrew should go all the way and Andrew should win and so forth and so forth. Talk to us, Everton. This is a live and we like discussions and we like to hear good stuff. Mr. Patterson.
Good evening. How are you doing, sir?
Oh. Mr. Patterson has joined us and with his Prime Minister voice. And his good knowledge and his promising leadership skills and leadership ability. Mr. Patterson, when I think about you, I oftentimes tell myself, I hope we don't miss this opportunity. I really hope we don't miss this opportunity. This opportunity to see what someone like you can do if given the opportunity to participate in the governance of our country, in the leadership of our country. I would like to see that, and I believe if we miss this mark, If we miss this mark, it will be a sad thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about objectivity tonight. We're not blasting the prime minister or having any accusation. What we want to know is if, because when at the beginning of the live, we looked at some mishaps, some people call them scandals, of the administration, different government ministers, MPs of the reigning Jamaica Labour Party. And of course, all the way up until now, the prime minister has taken the Integrity Commission through the legal system. But it's been story after story, situation after situation. And yes, people oftentimes say, well, when the PNP come and save you, when this one, and that's the point. So the point is, where do we go from here as Jamaicans? How do we view this? And what actions can we take as a collective people to play our part, our role in governance? I'll let you give your feedback on that, Mr. Bass.
Well, I'm here to be your sounding board tonight. I am just passing through because I heard that you were on by yourself. So I decided, let me, just jump on. I was actually in another meeting, but I just cut that one short and jump over here to, just to support you and to be available to our viewers. Now, I know that right now the Ublaha is about saying Andrew must resign, he must step aside. That's at least one half of the vocal persons are saying that, and then another half is saying that he should stay, and they give their valid reasons for that. Now, in any normal country, a well-run country, if a prime minister become embroiled in a situation like what we have now, where there's so many questions around his financial affairs and whether or not he has been enriched illicitly from being in public office, he would have to resign in order to allow for the investigative process to be completed.
Right.
If the substance is so great. But we're not in a normal country, we're in Jamaica. And I think we ought to step back and look at the reality. And the reality is this. In Jamaica, we do not have institutions that are not politicized. Almost every institution in Jamaica is politicized. So for example, if whenever one party or the other wins, there's a tendency that those who are inside the institution may be for one or the other party, right? Those who are inside the institution. So you might find that the institution works one way when their party is out of office and a different way when their party is in office. Why do I say this? Let's look closely at what's happening with the Prime Minister. And I'm no fan of Andrew Holness. Remember, he has been in court right now. I just got a call earlier today, actually. Somebody said to me, I know you're leaning GLP, And they're saying that because they don't see me jumping up and down like everybody else and just saying, resign and whatever. Because I really like to think about things carefully before I reach a conclusion. And the closer I look at this, here's what's jumping out at me. The Integrity Commission has the power to properly investigate and prosecute the Prime Minister. They have the power to properly investigate and prosecute. Why have they created a show, a drama out of the whole thing? Why didn't they just simply complete their investigation, do a thorough report, present that to the Parliament, and issue a prosecutorial notice for the Prime Minister and take him to court and have him, if he is found guilty, serve his jail time? Why instead you're going to produce an incomplete report, put that out into the public sphere, and create all kind of insinuations? And we the people are not equipped to decide whether or not the money that we're talking about is illicit or not. We do not have enough information to do that. We don't know how to evaluate how much money moving between 28 bank accounts and what does that mean. We don't have that capacity as a people, but the Integrity Commission has that capacity. We have paid them. We have a set of laws that says they may investigate any member of parliament or prime minister, and they may do a forensic audit of that person, and then they may produce a report to say whether the audit findings suggest or not that there is illicit enrichment. If they believe that they need the services of the tax administration of Jamaica to help them reach that conclusion, the law allows them to do that, to call upon that entity without coming to Parliament, without asking the parliamentarians to help them to solicit the help of the TAJ. They have the right in law to ask the TAJ to assist them in completing their investigation, or to ask the Financial Investigative Division to do the same. Why do you create all this mayhem in our society, all this drama around a simple matter? And here's how it is very simple. It doesn't matter how many millions or billions have circulated between how many accounts. All that really matters is to identify the source of the funds. So I'm an accountant by profession. The way you perform an audit, right? You either do a comprehensive or a sample-based audit, and you go through. You say, listen, we're looking at this man, Andrew Holness. Let's look at him carefully. He has declared these are his assets. This is his net worth. You say, okay, that's what you say it is. Now let's start to test each of these numbers and figures. And when you're testing, let's say you come across a company that is affiliated with the Prime Minister, but he never disclosed that he has assets, meaning shares in that company, or that he's a related party to that company. They say, why haven't you disclosed this? And then he gives you an explanation. And let's say the explanation is insufficient for you. You dig deeper. And at the end of the day, what you're going to discover is he has however many $1 million. And the source of it is, and you trace backwards, here's the source. It came from the sale of a property that he already owned, or the sale of a service by one of his business, or a donation in one of his foundation, and you look at who is the donor and whether the donated funds were used for the purposes for which they were donated, and so on. And you put together a complete case file that then says, based on this, he's unable to account for the source of X amount of dollars, and therefore, because he cannot account for it, we're going to lay charges. Or those dollars that he got seem to be associated with his office and is outside of the normal course of business, and therefore we're going to prosecute him for this. Why create all of this mayhem and confusion and allow people to draw their own conclusions about the Prime Minister? This is unfair to the Prime Minister. And I have no love. I mean, I am not here to defend the Prime Minister. It's unfair for you to put incomplete information into the public domain and have we, the people, prosecute the Prime Minister. You, the Integrity Commission, are empowered by law to investigate, come to a conclusion, and prosecute the Prime Minister. Don't leave it to public opinion, because what you're doing now, you're using innuendos, you're undermining the integrity of the office, and you're placing the country in a perilous position. The right thing to do is to properly investigate the Prime Minister. If you find some form of wrongdoing, prosecute him through the court of law, have him have a proper defense, he having to come to court, lay his defense out, and you, the IC, would have laid out your charges against the Prime Minister. And we, the people, can now watch the case knowing that there are equally competent people, those who are defending the Prime Minister legally, is lawyers, and those who are working on behalf of the state, or in this case, the Crown, because we're still under the monarch, saying we're prosecuting and here's our case against the Prime Minister. Instead, you have put out incomplete information and have all kinds of made-up stories going around. At the end of the day, the Prime Minister may very well be guilty, but because of the incompetence of the Integrity Commission, he may now get off on a technicality because they would have violated his constitutional rights. They would have violated the rule of law. They would have botched the case. Now, here's what I think might be happening. This may be intentional by the IC, intentional, working in cahoots with the People's National Party to see if they can bring down the Prime Minister politically, but not legally. They want to bruise him and damage him politically and cause him to lose the election on the grounds of, rightly or wrongly, accusations that may be right or false. But at the end of the day, they don't carry it all the way, because if they carry it all the way, you might very well be prosecuted, you might very well be found guilty, and we might have the first Prime Minister to go to jail. Now, if that happens, I can assure you that there will be retributions, because the skeletons of the other side will suddenly start to come out. And we might find ourselves also prosecuting the leader of the opposition and maybe others of the opposition. And then the whole can of worms will open up. And the entire Jamaican population will see what we have been saying for so long, that we have two criminal entities running our country.
Interesting. So what you're saying is, you're not necessarily saying that the Prime Minister is not guilty of these things. What you're saying is that there's a circus going on right now where it's a web of dishonesty and deceit and incompetence on the side of the IC and on the side of these institutions that should be the institutions that hold our leaders accountable. That's basically what you're saying.
Absolutely. I am making it very clear that we should not buy into what I believe might be a nefarious plot to win an election by discrediting your opponent, but not seriously pursuing good governance. The UIC is about pursuing good governance. We don't want to malign anybody's character. We don't want to cast aspersions at anybody. We don't want to bring down the Prime Minister on false accusations. What we want is for the people of Jamaica to know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And the Integrity Commission is, in my opinion, beginning to lack integrity because it has not carried out its end of the bargain properly and may very well be in collusion with the opposition to pull off a political stunt, not an anti-corruption stunt. What we want, what the UIC wants, is for this anti-corruption body to focus on anti-corruption, not politics. Focus on bringing to the Jamaican people the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Let us get to the bottom. So stop this shenanigan. Pull back the thing. Apologize to the Jamaican people and give us a credible, well-articulated, well-audited report that says definitively, clearly, whether the Prime Minister is guilty of anything or not. I believe that the Andrew Holness government has enough wrongs that it has done openly for us to not vote for them in the next elections. There's no reason why this government should be re-elected, none whatsoever. And there's also no reason why the PNP should be elected, none whatsoever. The PNP, like the GLP, has proven themselves to be nothing but anti-Jamaica. They have worked effectively for their colonial masters. They have worked effectively for the PSOJ, and they have worked effectively against the interest of Jamaica. That is why everything they touch fails for us. It doesn't fail for them. Look at the Prime Minister. Since he has been in politics, from the 1990s until now, more than 30 years in politics, he has only gotten richer. The Jamaican people, in general, have only gotten poorer. We have lost everything. We have lost our airlines. We have lost our train or railway station service. We have lost our airports. We have lost control of our roads. We have lost control of all of our major industries. So it's very clear that these two colonial parties are not working in our interest. Anybody who has the nerve to say shower or power is somebody who is mentally incapacitated. It means they do not have the capacity to analyze what's happening to them and what's happening to us. Look at us today. Just look at any community. I watched the news recently and hear them talking about, for St. Anne, they're going to spend money to fix up the market now, after Desmond McKenzie went and walked through it just before the by-elections. What kind of foolishness is that? How can you just now be seeing that it's in a dilapidated state? You don't need Desmond McKenzie to walk through a market. Why do you have an MP? Why do you have councillors? The councillors, the MPs, should have long seen that. And the people should have long seen that. And the people should have said, we're not going to vote for you based on what we have seen. There is no logical reason why any sitting MP today should be re-elected in Jamaica. No reason at all. There's no reason why any sitting councillor should be re-elected in Jamaica. None at all. Because none of them have actually addressed the fundamental needs of the people. We're very insecure. Our country is very dirty. Our nation is disorderly. Doing business is inefficient. So what are you voting for? A vote for green or orange is actually a vote to punish yourself.
Interesting. Donovan Phillips is saying, how Andrew Holness failed Jamaica. Look at all the investment. You all too biased. Well, you see, Donovan, the discussion tonight is not about whether or not I believe any government or any party that's in government must at least accomplish something. That's not the discussion tonight, you know, and I think Mr. Patterson fell right into the theme of tonight, which is objectivity. And as he mentioned, are we anti-Jamaica or are we for Jamaica? And that's the point of tonight's discussion and tonight's live. We want to be patriots tonight. We want to look at Jamaica first. We started this live by me stating the discussion that I had with someone early on and saying that we need to look beyond colors now. We need to look beyond political partisanship now. We need to have that type of discussion in which that discussion that allows us to grow as a people and to become more progressive in our minds, our thoughts, our actions, and our accomplishments. And that's kind of like what the discussion is about. Nobody is blasting the GLP tonight. Nobody is blasting the PNP. We're looking out for Jamaicans tonight. We want to come together because only through a united voice and a united stance. And that is what the UIC represents. That's why it's called the United Independence Congress. It is the People's Party. And so we want to have a Jamaica that is inclusive and a Jamaica in which none is excluded because of the color that they chose, the political color that they choose. So that's kind of like what this discussion is about. So those are others in the comment section who are saying all of those things. Let us put away political partisanship for a moment. We're having an objective discussion. And Mr. Patterson have come and made it clear that the reality is they've affected the Prime Minister's constitutional right. And so therefore, I guess that's why he's choosing the legal channel. But at the same time, the IC, the Integrity Commission, really have done sloppy work, perhaps because, as Mr. Patterson says, political motivations and so on. So the discussion is objective tonight. We want to settle our heads. We want to think like good thinking Jamaicans tonight. So question, Mr. Patterson. So going forward now, the Prime Minister takes the commission to court. What are the implications of that and the possible outcomes?
Well, I mean, the possible outcome is that the Prime Minister loses his request to have the procedures that they have followed be made null and void, and may even seek damages. We might find taxpayers having to pay the Prime Minister damages for the poor quality work that was done by the Integrity Commission. That's one outcome. The other outcome is that they say, no, the procedures were correct and the Integrity Commission has not done anything wrong, and let the thing proceed as is. And what will happen now is the Parliament would now need to vote But then the prime minister has the majority in parliament. So the majority in parliament will not vote to have the matter be taken up by the TAJ or the FID. But on the other hand, the TAJ and the FID are morally bound now that they're aware of a possible, let's in the case of the TAJ, Tax Administration of Jamaica, let's say they're now aware of a possible tax evasion or tax fraud, possible, right? It is their responsibility to now investigate that without even getting a formal request from Parliament or from the Integrity Commission. So again, it comes down to who are running these institutions. So you might find that those in the TAJ may decide, let's say they're supporters of the governing party, they may decide not to take this up. The leadership may decide not to take this up, and therefore they don't take it up. But let's say there's somebody in Jamaica that they want to get at. They might decide, let's pursue this person. It's these kinds of cherry picking subjectivity that we want to get rid of, the OIC. We want to have a system that treats all Jamaicans the same. So nobody is above the law simply because their party is in power, or nobody is below the law and is going to be ostracized more so because you want to bring down their party. You call that weaponizing the system, whichever part of the system that is. So Jamaica right now is in a very bad state because we have cultured corruption in this country. These two parties have made Jamaica culturally corrupt. And what many don't understand is that culture is derived from governance. Your governance model and how that is implemented creates the culture of the people. And so Jamaica now has a culture of corruption. And so all of our institutions are now corrupt and require an overhaul. We now need a new system of governance. We need a new cadre of leaders. We need a new Jamaica. And what's happening right now is just an indication of how rotten the entire system is. If we had a good system and if we had an effective integrity commission, we the people would have heard nothing until they came out and said, we're now prosecuting the prime minister for illicit enrichment, and he would be served notice and he would have to go to court. And at that point, we could all jointly rise up and say resign, because the system would have been so complete and comprehensive that the mere fact that he's now being prosecuted would be enough for us to say resign. But unfortunately, those of us who understand Jamaica and are not just acting out of emotion or acting out of our partisan lenses would know better than just jumping up and saying, do this or that. We would kind of ask the right questions. And the question right now, in my mind, is why did the Integrity Commission do this to us? Why did they put us in this position? And the Prime Minister, in my opinion, has rightly challenged the actions of the Integrity Commission. And it may be that the Prime Minister has something to hide. It may be that he is going to try to skillfully skirt the law, but it will only be because the Integrity Commission has allowed him the latitude to be able to do that by failing to give in a close and complete report to Parliament, which would have been above reproach and would have made sure that the Prime Minister has little or no wiggle room if he's guilty.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Mr. Patterson. That interesting. So we're waiting to see these developments and to see how all of this turn out. I want to tap into a comment here. Steffi Bess, you say, UIC Jamaicans don't do third parties. We're going to give Mark Golding a chance. Time come. All right. So, but that's just the point of the discussion, Steffi Bess. If you look at how third parties were effective in certain countries internationally, you look at England or you look at Canada, their third parties have played very significant roles in parliament when they win seats and so on. If you think about it, you have two people, because if the PNP come and the PNP do the same thing, and the PNP, have scandals and scandals, as you hear the Prime Minister and Dr. Peter Phillips during Peter Phillips' leadership was going back and forth and said this government is scandalous, and the next one said no, this government is scandalous. So this type of circus, shenanigans, and so forth, that having a two-party system cater for. That's the point of this discussion, Steffi Bess. We need to elevate Jamaica. Those who love Jamaica will understand what this discussion is about. And those who love Jamaica will understand that, well, I don't even like to call it parties, but if you want to put it that way, those who love Jamaica will understand what a third party, the effect, the impact, the positive impact that can have on Jamaica's economy, on Jamaica's politics, on Jamaica's culture. If you have two people and you have two of them going back and forth and say, no, I didn't do it, next one said, no, I don't do it. When you have a third person, what that create? What do they usually say in the sphere of things? When they say you have a third person, objectivity, accountability. We need to start thinking like this as Jamaicans so we can progress, so we can make a further name on the global scale. That is what this discussion is about. Yes.
Can you imagine how effective it is that the two colonial parties and those who fund them have been able to convince the Jamaican people that third parties cannot succeed? That's an effective brainwashing strategy. They have been very, very skillful. No wonder we have 82% of our students in high school failing, because you need to have that level of intellect or lack of intellect to appreciate the need for what the UIC is. So the UIC is more than just a third party. What we've brought to Jamaica is a new way of thinking. We have pointed out to the Jamaican people that, listen, if you allow the elites in your society to own your political parties, you'll never get the results you want. Because as long as the elites own the two choices, the person says, is Mark time now? Yes, it's Mark time now. It was also PJ's time before. It was Portia's time before. It was Bruce's time before. It was Andrew's time before. Do you want a politics where it's a person's time, or do you want a politics that addresses your personal needs? I want a politics that addresses our needs as individual citizens, not a system that addresses the need of Mark to be Prime Minister, or Andrew to be Prime Minister, or Joseph to be Prime Minister. We don't want somebody to just be Prime Minister. We want our problems fixed. We want the problem of security fixed. We want the problem of roadworks fixed. We want the problem of our education system fixed. We want our economy to be fixed. We want a Jamaica that is safe, clean, and orderly. We want a Jamaica where all of we can live, earn, and retire with dignity. So you should be concerned not with whether third parties can win. You should be concerned why. Why is it that we're locked into the duopoly, the monopoly, a monopolistic system that is controlled by the PSOJ oligarchs? Why do you want to remain in a system where your government is owned by one group of people, a small subset of Jamaica, the richest, and many of those subset, by the way, many of the people that subset are now foreigners, because more and more of Jamaica's largest businesses are owned or controlled by foreigners, because more and more the Jamaican people are become devoid of capital. We have a system which is making us broke. It's gradually depreciating all of us into becoming poor people. And now our rum, our beverage industry, our farming sectors, our electricity production sector, everything, our tourism product are being owned by foreigners. Now, because of that, these corporate interests that now owns our economy, they pay for the two parties you're crazy about. They give them the money to come to your community and buy your votes. So when they come and buy the votes of those who they have kept poor and marginalized, they have kept so weak that when they give them $5,000 or $10,000 at election time, they're excited, and a cap and a T-shirt and jump up and down and a bus ride. They get all excited and they can pay them to come to conference. Is that what you want to maintain in Jamaica? I submit we should not want to maintain this in Jamaica, but we have to understand how to get out of it. There's no way that we're going to get out of this unless we understand our politics and realize that our government is owned by the richest people operating in Jamaica. They pay for these two parties. So when you unelect Andrew and you elect Mark, what you're really doing is re-electing the PSOJ oligarchs again and again and again. They have been running this country through their proxies, through their agents for the last 8 years. So you're not going to get a difference. You get a difference in flavor, but it's still the same ice cream. Okay? The flavor might be different, but it will still do the same damage to you in terms of your health, right? It can be chocolate, but it's still not good for you. It can be vanilla, but it's still not good for you. It can be cherry, but it's... So what you want is a healthy political system. And the UIC has taken the time to design that system for you. And what some of you have done is to just easily just box it away. I don't care. I don't want to know about that. I'm encouraging you, take the time to listen and understand. What is this UIC proposing? For example, Mr. Nelson, we're saying, let's move to a 100% publicly funded campaign financing system. What does this mean? It means that political parties no longer can fund campaigns. The private sector can no longer fund campaigns. All you have to do as a candidate is to qualify by having the experiential requirements, the academic requirements, and you do a good governance test to prove that you're capable and competent, and then you're given the same access as any other candidate in whatever constituency you're running, the same access to newspaper, radio, television, internet, town hall meetings, and debates. And then the people of your constituency will be able to see all the candidates, see whoever, see them on video, see them in real time, and then they're able to vote, I want this one or that one. No buying of votes is taking place. No big expensive campaign is taking place, but now we're focused on policy instead of party. The best men and women to lead our country. One basic change like that would phenomenally change the future of Jamaica. And we have many more. The UIC has done a complete system of improvement and changes and development for Jamaica. And as long as we decide not to fund that as a people, but to leave the PSOJ to continue to fund their two colonial parties, we're simply going to be swapping black dog for white monkey for the rest of our lives.
And just to pick up on the whole PSOJ discussion and so forth, think about this, Mr. Patterson. If I were to put this to most people, if I were to say the Obama administration, the Biden administration, or the Trump administration, who do you believe had the most aggressive anti-immigration policies? Most people would probably say Trump, but this is actually not true. It's more towards Obama, and then Biden picked it up a little bit. What does that have to do with the Jamaican situation? It's the same. The special interests, the Democrats oftentimes, the special interests, the private companies and so forth, pushes agenda. And so because, yes, people are thinking about migration, but they're also thinking about industries, because it is the industries and those from the private sector who fund the political parties, who fund campaigns and so on. And it is the same thing in Jamaica. So when that's the case, and oftentimes you have no objectivity. Remember, our theme of tonight's discussion is objectivity. So you have no objectivity from one party versus the other party, because the other party know that they are part of this as well. So your point about the oligarchs, and your point about public funded campaigns versus privately funded campaigns is justified, because that's how politics work. And as you say, if you don't know how the politics work, then your rights will be taken away. And your country, this is the very country that you say you love, the very country, Jamaica, continues to be stagnated and progress is not achieved. And then when you go complain and say, hey, tired, the road need to fix, this need to fix, that need to fix. But what part do you play, not just in voting, but in educating yourself, knowing the situation, making yourself better? Of course, you say yes. Sometimes you hear people cause I say, none of them, none of this, none of them, none of that. But if you don't want to get involved, maybe your son or your daughter who is going through high school or is going through college or whatever, have a conversation with them now. So what's going on, my son? What's going on, my daughter? You know, have you ever thought about this? What you're learning in school about this? You know, let's have a discussion. Let's discuss things around the dining table. So we can play a part. Every Jamaican can play a part. Whether or not you feel like, want to talk about this discussion, you just, that can't accomplish putting bread by your table, but it does. But can you speak to the people about that? There's a thing out there that says that the Jamaican people don't want to hear no deep discussion, and they don't want to hear nothing about this or that. They just want to talk about economics. Can you let the people know how interlinked this is? The two concept is the idea of knowledge, education, and the idea of the economy, the bread by your table, the flour that you put in your cupboard.
I'll tell you this. There is no poor country where the people are educated. There are no poor countries around the world where the people are educated. The poorest country in the world are the ones where the people are the most uneducated. So there are two spectrums, this educated and this less education. The more you move towards the less educated is the more corruption and poverty you have in a country. The more you move towards educated is the less corruption and more prosperity you have in a country. It is that simple. Now, Jamaica, unfortunately, has been a breeding ground for uneducated and undereducated. And don't shoot the messenger. You just have to understand the reality. If you look at the statistics in our country, if we are failing between 70 and 80% of our students every year by virtue of a bad education system, and if those who make up the 20 to 30% who are educated, they leave the country within 2 to 3 years of graduation. They migrate. So we're losing the more educated from the country quickly migrating, and we're building up a high concentration of the less educated. Then what you're doing, you're sowing the seeds for the maintenance of a highly corrupt country and a poor country. And that's what's happening here. The UIC has offered the Jamaican people something that no other party has ever offered the Jamaican people. We have been the education party. So we have taken the time not to just engage in politics as usual, where you just go out there and slander one side or the other and encourage the slaughtering of each other with words. Instead, we have spent the time providing content and context to help people to understand what has been done to them, how it is being done to them, why it was done to them, and what we can now do about it. The key thing now is for us to overcome the obstacle of obviously those in power doing everything to make sure we're not heard or seen. But we have the power as the people. If those among us who have the capacity to understand would rise up en masse, and I'm talking just a few, if 1,000 Jamaicans were today to rise up en masse and say, you know what, I'm going to give my all to this UIC thing. And we can do it because we have done it for the other two before. You have had many who have given their all to the green. Many who have given their all to the orange. My mother was one of them. I mean, she was an amazing woman. The amount of time and energy. She only had a grade 9 education. But she fought tooth and nail to get her party elected. She gave everything to get her party to be elected. So I know we have the capacity, no matter how poor we are, because she was poor. We all lived in a little one-room house. She was very poor, but she loved our party, gone to bed. She believed in the mission. I would like to find some people who believe in the mission the way we do. Those of us who have been working very hard behind the scene and in front of the scene for the UIC. If we can have 1,000 of us who love the movement and love what we stand for, and just get out there, we can overcome the media in no time. and spread the word like wildfire and bring in 500,000 of us, and by our own initiative and power, the power that is in our hands as the people, we could quickly and easily overturn the system that now exists and put in place a non-partisan constitutional republic that will give the Jamaican people the kind of environment they need to succeed. And I know some people think it's impossible, they say, no, man, Jamaica can't change. Well, I'm glad that at least one other country that was worse than us did it. They were worse than us on every metric. They had less resources. They had more uneducated people. They had more internal strife. And they overcame all of that to become a first world nation in 25 years. And we have had 80 years now to mess around with this. Yeah. I'm saying, let us do that now. But we can't wait for a Messiah to come. We can't wait for the two parties to find a leader that has it within his or her heart to do the right thing, because they're part of a system. If I were to have ever joined one of the two parties, I know what would have happened to me. There's no way they can overcome their internal DNA, their internal machinery. They will chew you up and spit you out if you ever try to change the trajectory. Those two parties are built on the foundation of corruption. When you join them, when you see a young person, young professional, get up and join one of those two parties, they see a financial way out in that. They see how they can't make it in Jamaica normally. Mr. Nelson, talk to me now. The average young Jamaican professional, a person who went to UWI or UTEC or NCU or ICC or whatever it's called, who went and get their first degree and come out and thinks that them going to make it in a life, when them say the paltry sum that they're going to get as their paycheck, and when they deduct transportation and lunch and the clothes that they have to wear to look nice in the office, they don't have nothing. And so what they see is, but wait there, if I join one of those two gangs, I get access to money, access to capital, access to connections. So now my loan will get approved by the bank quicker and more than the ordinary man or woman. My application through whatever government program will go through faster. My access to a ministry as a state minister or MP, or minister is increased. Even if I'm going to get elected, I might get appointed to the Senate or to a board. There are many Jamaicans right now who are augmenting their income through boards. They have their regular job somewhere, but because of their political connection, they're on a board getting 150,000, 200,000, 300,000 a month for doing nothing. But that is the system we have now. So people in Jamaica don't rise by merit. We don't rise because we are good at what we do. We rise because of who we're connected to. And that is detrimental, because you're stifling the best among us. And you're attracting to your political process those with the worst minds and repelling those with the best minds. If I ever simply wanted to be made exponentially wealthy in Jamaica, you think I'd be wasting my time with this UIC thing? All UIC does for me personally is drain my financial resources and drain my time and drain my intellect. Just imagine if I take all this time and all this financial resources and all this intellect and just pour it into my own personal developmental agendas, my own thing.
So let me ask that question.
Yes.
Let me ask a question. So just to keep what you just said, to connect it to your answer now. Why are you doing it?
Yes, I'm doing this because I'm going to say something that's facetious. I'm a madman. I'm doing this because I honestly believe that Jamaica can be no less than Singapore. And I honestly believe that we cannot leave it to these two parties or any leader they may bring forward to do it. I do not see it. I've been watching for years. I have been involved in Jamaican politics from before I was born, because my mother had me in the belly while she was running up and down in politics. I was born just after the 72 election, which she fought hard in for her party to win. And I still remember the 76th election. 76, I would have been 7 years old, right? No, 6 years old. No, 5 years old actually. And I remember the 76th election. And I remember the 1980s election. And I'm a part of that. And when I observe all of what I saw then and what I observed throughout my years as a young man, and carry that through to when I returned to Jamaica, I'm like, there's no way. I'm not seeing where this will ever change for the better. And so I'm doing this because I want to see a better Jamaica, and I believe that I have the answer for that to occur.
Love that answer. Mr. Patterson, we have a guest with us. It's Miss Lisa Burton. Night, Lisa. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Yes, so Lisa and I, Mr. Patterson, we met recently, and we've been having a lot of political discussion. And I think it would be good to have Lisa on tonight. And Lisa, I want you to speak to Mr. Patterson and Mr. Patterson to speak to you about why you, as a Jamaican patriot, someone who loves their country, should think about supporting the UIC, the United Independence Congress. And so, in extension, I want those who are on the live, those who are watching, those who will watch the live later on, see this and connect to this as well. I think this is a good opportunity. First of all, Lisa is a banker, and and she wanted to know more about the UIC. Mr. Patterson, can you tell Lisa why it is important for her to support the United Independence Congress?
Sure. First of all, let me say good night to you, Lisa. Good to have you on. And I'm looking forward to your questions and your contribution. Why,
Thanks.
if you are, oh, go ahead. You might want to say something. Go ahead.
No, I was just thanking you for the warm welcome.
Sure. What part of Jamaica are you from?
Manchester.
Manchester. Wonderful. I live about 35 minutes away from Mandeville.
Okay.
Actually. So I'm on this side of the planet. All right. So why do I think you should support the UIC? It's very simple. If you are a well-thinking Jamaican, an independent thinker, somebody who is able to assess the condition of Jamaica today, I'm sure you will conclude that after 80 years of the two colonial parties, Jamaica has not fared well. If you look at any key metric,
Yeah.
be it our national security, be it our education system, be it the quality of our healthcare system, be it the economy and its ability to provide opportunities for our young people to have gainful employment that is commensurate with their education and offers them upward mobility, any Jamaican that is reasonable would come to the conclusion that those who we have allowed to steward our country have not done a good job. Their stewardship is greatly in question. And if we have given them 80 years and they're unable to deliver on those basic metrics, we should not give them even 8 more days in office. Now, the UIC is unlike any other third political party in that we were not formed as a offshoot of one of the two parties. That's number one. Nor have we simply sought to offer ourselves as a simple alternative of more of the same. We have taken the time to develop a manifesto and a system of governance which is unlike any that have ever been implemented fully throughout the world. We are a world leader when it
Okay.
comes on to designing a system of governance. We are on the cutting edge when it comes on to recognizing your sovereignty as an individual and designing a system that would fully respect what Nanny, Sam Sharp, Bogle, and Garvey fought and died for. Many Jamaicans have lost sight of what our ancestors really fought for. They believe, some have come to the settled conclusion that government is about giving them handouts. So they're willing to give up their rights to just get something. While Nanny and Sharp and others, they didn't die for that. They died for the opportunity to have their own economy, to grow by merit, to have a system that allows them the space, the environment to achieve their full potential. So the UIC's vision is a Jamaica that will bring out the best in all its people. And for that to happen, we need a new system. And we call that a non-partisan constitutional republic, one that will protect your life, liberty, and property rights, one that will give you a safe, clean, and orderly society, one that will ensure that every one of we can live, earn, and retire with dignity in true liberty.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you.
You have any question for Mr. Patterson, Melissa?
Um, well, how do you think the Vision 2030 will unfold if you were in power?
Well, first of all, I must tell you, I don't subscribe to Vision 2030. I
Mm,
think that is a derivative of the United Nations and the globalist agenda and their attempt to find slick ways of conning us into accepting their control over our lives. What I believe in is the vision we have set for Jamaica, a Jamaica that will bring out the best in all of us. The current system bring out the worst in us at every level, be it in our schools, in our streets, and in our parliament. What we want is a system that will free the Jamaican people, not one that will constrain us or which will tie us down to somebody else's agenda. Here's our agenda. We want you to be able to do whatever you want with your life, with your freedom, and with your property, provided you do not use force or fraud to infringe on the life, liberty, or property rights of anybody else. What we want is for the Jamaican people to, for the first time, have a system of governance that will not divide them by parties or color, but unite them around good governance. What we want is a system in Jamaica where our education allows us to be and learn to our fullest extent, one that will give us a sense of our African heritage and help us to understand and appreciate what it means to be a true African. We want a system of education that will teach our children not just academics, but how to be truly solid and successful human beings as individuals.
mhm.
We're not just creating a
Right.
labor force. We're creating a nation of well-developed human beings that can live in a civil and organized way that allow them to be the best that they can be. So in essence, the UIC is about liberating our people while at the same time uniting our people by empowering our people with true education.
Okay. All right. That's my initial question so far. As we progress, I'll come with you with more.
Sure. Let me ask you a question if you don't mind.
Sure.
All right. So, can you give us an idea of roughly how old you are? You don't have to give me the exact, age, but give me a range so I can get a bit of a parameter.
Okay. 40 to 45.
40 to 45. So, and you've always lived in Jamaica.
Not always.
Okay. You've lived in other countries before.
Yes.
All right. And so that leads me to a very good question. Where you have lived before and in Jamaica, which would you say offered you the best opportunity to realize your full potential? In the country you spend some time in, or Jamaica offers you a better opportunity to realize your full potential?
Well, to be fair, I was at
Mhm.
different stages of the life cycle in different countries, and I
Yeah,
had different goals at each time periods. But I had the best quality of life in Jamaica.
the best quality of life in Jamaica. Okay,
Yeah.
I I am surprised because I'll tell you why I'm surprised.
Hmm.
I've lived in Canada for a number of years, and I've traveled to a number of countries. I've spent time in China, I've spent time in Myanmar, spent time in Germany, France, UK, the US, we're Singapore. Um, yeah, and one thing I've noticed about many countries I've lived in, or not lived in, but spent time in, is that they, for example, Singapore, ultra safe compared to Jamaica, like super safe, like super. I mean, my wife and I could go outside any time of night and feel completely comfortable. We
Mm-hmm.
can't do that here.
Yeah.
Um, in Singapore, for example, I never once, and this I feel when I say this, I feel like I'm exaggerating, but I know it's true because it's the truth. I never saw a single pothole in Singapore. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
driving, I could relax and drive. I could
Mm-hmm.
drive and just feel relaxed. In Canada, when I drove in Canada, it's changing now because the recent government has become a little bit careless. So when I was there living as a resident, I could drive comfortably on the road and just feel at ease. When I get out of my house, back in Canada, my house didn't have a fence around it. A fence
Mm-hmm.
in my backyard, but at the front there's no fence. I just
Right.
walk out of my house and the lawn is there and the cars in the garage, and it was so free. I felt so liberated. I could sometime I was always in finance in most of my life in Canada, and sometime I love to go in the office very early. I'll be in the
Mm-hmm.
office by 6 in the morning, so I'll get up out of my bed and I jump out, get ready, just jump in my car, and I drive out at 5 in the morning to go to work. I'm not worried. I didn't step out and look out at the glass first and check before I go out. I didn't have to pull any burglar bar, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I just turned a simple latch. Sometimes I forgot to lock the door in my porch, my back porch. It just felt so free. So I couldn't honestly say that I have had my best quality of life here in Jamaica because I would be lying personally.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm amazed that you have.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, I don't know. Maybe because it's Manchester. At the time that I was in Manchester, there
Mhm,
wasn't a lot of crime. There wasn't, a lot of anything much. It was relatively safe.
mhm.
Like I would get up, I would go to Kingston, go to shows, come back, drive in the morning, 1 o'clock, go back home. I just felt good, and I was able to work, get assets,
Mhm.
live a relatively good life.
Boy, honestly, I'm really amazed. I mean, okay, I could say, for example, before I left and went to Canada to live, I was an engineer here and I worked for the sugar company. I was
Mhm.
instrumentation manager. If you ask me, then I was living a great life. I mean, I my paycheck then to me was pretty good, my paycheck, but I saw many people around me struggling and suffering. I was
Yeah.
fortunate because, of course, I was a professional and I was being paid at a higher grade than most people, even though I was only 22. You know,
Hmm. Right.
then. Um, but I was working, for example, in Moneymuff, and when I go, around the estate and so on, you saw people living in very
Less than ideal.
poor condition.
Hmm.
So when I hear you say that, I mean, I'm struggling because I know what I see, but then again, you as a person, your own little cocoon may actually experience it differently. But
Yeah.
for me, I look at the wider context. In
Hmm.
Canada, a person on minimum wage in Canada, when I was there, lives a much better life than a person on minimum wage in in Jamaica. A person with minimum wage there can actually go and buy a little car. Yes, they're paying a monthly payment for it, but they can go buy a little car and they can get a decent apartment and they can get a decent grocery cart full of food. Come Saturday or Friday, go buy a grocery. You can come home with something good. And I know because I was on minimum wage there once. I worked for
Hmm.
6.85 an hour. Today it's like $19,
Hmm.
or 17.
Yeah.
So when I look at how people live here, and even I'm not among the poorest people in Jamaica here. And I find life very, very difficult. Just for example, I have to go deal with my taxes at the tax office, the long hell of a line. You have to go stand up. Of course, I can go pay somebody and get it faster, right? But in
Yeah.
Canada, I don't have to do that. In Canada, I
Hmm.
don't have to pay nobody. I go to get my car fitness in Canada, just so
Yeah.
done.
Well,
To
to be
get
fair, they've introduced the online system now, so they're
no,
getting there.
no, I'm not saying no. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they have not introduced anything. but you still see the long line at the tax office.
And that's only because of the mentality of the people.
No, it's not. No, no, no. You see, you know, and that's where you have to adjust your thinking.
Mhm.
You, because of your station in life and your access, certain things make sense and are easier for you to do. For example, recently we applied for a TRN
Mhm.
for one of our organizations. We applied online for it.
Mhm.
1 year later, we had to physically print the paper and go into the office to go get it done because it got lost in.
Transmission.
Yes. So while I mean sometimes we say these things about how we have online things done, whatever, but it's not happening for the majority of the people for
But
various reasons.
yeah,
Some
but
may
why
be
is it if
industry.
everybody has a smartphone, why is it that they can't use the same access, the same resources to do what they need to do? Why do they need to go into the bank and join a line? Why do they need to take that,
Exactly.
physical?
Why do they need to? Because
Mhm.
82% of them failed to get 5 subject with math and English.
Okay, so then there is
That's what I'm
where,
trying to tell you. There are all
yeah,
these factors that we need to take, and there are also many who were born in 1950 or 1960, yeah,
but they still
or
get with it. Most of them still using their WhatsApp and they're doing their video
no,
calls.
no, I'm
I-
not. Don't.
If
It's
if
easier
they
to
get
use
somebody to
WhatsApp.
teach them,
Yeah.
they can do it.
No, I'm not
They
saying they
have no
can't do it.
excuses.
I'm saying we have to. You see, that's the key thing about government. When you're in government, you have to make sure you understand your people and you have to
Mhm.
understand where they are, and you must put things in place. So, for example, if you want the people to adopt certain things, you have to build things to help them adopt. Don't just lick them over the head and say, "Why can't you just do it?" You
And
have to
I
build.
agree it's the same thing that we have to do in the
Yeah.
banking sector.
Right. You have to build things in.
Mhm.
And you have to understand. I mean, I have people who work for me who don't have a bank account.
Mhm.
And
And
there are
why is that?
persons who go to get a bank account and they want a house, land, and everything for you to open the account. And it's so frustrating that
Mhm.
some people just give up on the
Mhm.
process. But yeah, I see some points here online. One person says here in Canada, the racism makes it difficult to truly reach your full potential. My best
That
life has
too.
been in Jamaica. So
Mhm.
CMN, if your best life has been in Jamaica, why don't you just return? For example, then I mean it would just be, and I've heard this all the time. So just come back home then, and I guarantee you, 9 out of 10, you'll want to run back to Canada to the hard racist life. I, for one, for example, lived in Canada, and I'm going to say something here that makes people upset. A lot of people will be upset when they hear this. I have never experienced racism in Canada. Never in my entire life. I've worked in Canada as a they call them restaurateur, but that's a nice name for the person who mop the floor and wipe the table and serve people. I was getting 6.85 an hour because when I got there, they say I'm overqualified for this and I'm underqualified. Some people would call that racism. I didn't. I simply learned the system and understand. Okay, why are you saying I'm overqualified? They might not tell me personally, but I have to do my own assessment and figure it out. In the end, I adjusted myself, and within 1 year, I moved from waiting the table and mopping the floor to being a accounting clerk. And within 1 year from that, being a junior accountant, and 3 years from that, being an accounting supervisor, and 1 year from that, being an accounting manager. And then after that, it's all senior positions thereafter: director, VP finance, CFO, and so on. Now, in all that case, if Canada was a racist country, what would have happened is I would not have been able to do it because of my color. But I discovered my color had nothing to do with it. It was my competence that mattered. And the more competent I became, the more opportunities opened before me. If, on the other hand, every time I got rejected, I said, it's racism, then I would not turn on myself and find out what must I do better. But because I never called it racism, I said, okay, what did I do wrong? Why I didn't get there, so where I wanted to go. I evaluated me. I took responsibility for my actions. So I changed my behavior, learned more, mastered more, and the opportunities became unlimited to the point where I found myself as director of finance in government, as the youngest director of finance ever. in government managing a $2 billion budget. It's like, my goodness. And I'm black. But
Mhm.
the good thing is I never realized I was black. I wasn't focused on the black part. I was focused on competency, 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 competency. So my friend in Canada or wherever you are, please just focus on improving yourself daily, being the best that you can be. If you focus on racism, you will find it. If you focus on the negatives in your life, you're going to find many of them. But if you focus on being the best that you can possibly be, you'll find opportunities every day.
I want to ask Lisa yourself and also CMN on online. What do you think about the political process in Jamaica? Now, do you believe the two-party system, do you believe they're problematic? The idea that we move from JLP to PNP, the idea that these are our choices and the people have political partisanship or political tribalism. What do you do? CMN online and Lisa, what do you think about the politics in Jamaica? What are your views?
Well,
It
he said
w-
he's back home now. Go ahead, Miss Burton.
yeah. Um, I wish people would see beyond the orange and the green. I wish they would consider more of the issues in choosing the party that they want to lead them. I also wish we had more options. So, UIC, welcome to the platform and hoping that you can bring the change. Um, yeah.
I'll make a prediction for you, Miss Burton. The UIC and any other option that come up in Jamaica will fail. All third-party options will fail in Jamaica unless we do one thing. There's only one thing that can give us the option that we need, and is if we create it, we the
Mm-hmm.
people. As
Yeah.
long as we're waiting for and many Jamaicans are unfortunately waiting for an option. So whenever a third party arises, and we've had many, Jamaica has now had about 66 third parties. We're the
Mhm.
67th, you know, and they've all failed. And they've all failed for the simple reason that when they were created, they attempted to win government the same way the other two parties.
Exactly.
And you cannot replicate it. The reason you can't replicate it, you have to know your history. In the 1930s, the best Jamaican who ever lived, in my opinion, he's really an amazing guy, Marcus Garvey. I mean, for the level of education that he would have gotten in school formally, and for the era in which he lived, he was way above his time, way ahead of his time. He's a brilliant Jamaican. And Marcus Garvey had the foresight to create Jamaica's first political party in the 1930s. And he sent shivers through the spine of the colonial interest in Jamaica at the time. Let me tell you who the colonial interests were. Today we call them the PSOJ oligarchs. Back then they were called the plantocracy. So these were the richest Jamaicans, those who inherited the slave land, the land that the slave masters took. So they had the plantation, the worthy parts of the world. They had all the big land and all the sugar factories and all of that. They also controlled the mercantile trade. You understand? So those are very rich and wealthy people. They owned the Gleaner Company. So they controlled the media at the time as well. Just like today, the PSOJ oligarchs, they own the entire economy. They control the media. So all the media you see there going on, the radio, the television, they dictate what comes over those channels. So you're not getting free and fair and unbiased news. You're getting news which is allowed to come to you through those avenues. So back in Marcus Garvey time, they used the Gleaner to belittle him, berate him, to tear him down, and they also created two political parties, the PNP and the JLP, to then become their, what do you call it, controlled opposition, to create something opposite to him. So they pushed Marcus Garvey out, literally destroyed his party, and caused him to leave Jamaica. And then they controlled, because they could not afford for a truly indigenous, a truly grassroots party, which was formed the same way that the UIC is trying to form now, grassroots, crowdfunding, that people owned that party. And unfortunately, Marcus Garvey was overpowered by the same powers today that will overpower us unless we understand it and fight back. And so they killed it. So today the people have been now socialized into thinking that this is all they have. This is our option. We must do this. And if a third is to come, they see it the same way the first two came. Somebody else will foot the bill, and it will just come down from heaven like New Jerusalem with golden paved streets. And all they have to do is go and vote. They will see beautiful banners, they will see beautiful buses, they will see beautiful posters, they will see food and everything. And all they have to do is just say, yeah, man, let's give them a chance and just go and vote. So no third party will ever survive with that mentality if that stays in place. So the UIC and every other third party that ever wants to change Jamaica must overcome that blind spot. We have to help, we have to find a way, because remember, the media will not be with us. The media, it will be controlled by the same plantocracy, now called the PSOJ. So that media is going to do everything possible to keep the people's mind. Notice every day you wake up, what do you hear? PNP, JLP. What a problem with the road, PNP, JLP. Problem with the market, PNP, JLP. Problem with the economy. So they make sure they rivet that into your mind by repetition. And then minister the third party wait there. Not because the third party doesn't exist, but they're making sure that you don't see it. And if they ever have to report on it, they will make sure the report is very negative, very derogatory, very belittling, so that you say, oh, I'm not going away. But what they're really getting you to do is to make sure you not going away. You're going to stay right here, so in the hands that we want you to be in, because we're going to give you the false option that if you don't like what Andrew doing now, and you don't like the JLP now, think them not do well, vote them out. And do what? You vote in the next hand that they have for you. And you go over here, so now, and you're going to get upset again after one term or two terms. And you go back over here, so. But at all times, going over here, so at all times, there's one stabilizing force in the background, the PSOJ oligarch. They have both of them in their hands, and by extension, all the way in their hands. So for us to have a third party that wins, we the people are going to have to say enough is enough, and we're going to have to do like what Marcus Garvey told us and fund our own party, which now means when we elect these people, them now have the PSOJ backing to come by votes and whatever, and we them are depend on. So we're going to work now for your interest and your interest only, because of you own way. Right now, you don't own the PNP. You don't own the GLP. All you have is mouth, and they know how to overcome your mouth. Just buy the 30% that will vote and silence you and continue the process.
So CMN responded and said, so Jamaica is the same, if not GLP, then PNP, and nothing has changed in the advancement of Jamaica. Okay, so that's CMN response. Lisa, did you want to respond further with regards to the Jamaica's political system? Do you believe? Well, you did mention that a change would be good.
Yes.
How do you see a movement such as the United Independence Congress and their place in Jamaica?
Well, I guess a lot depends on how we're going to educate the masses, how we're going to introduce the ideas, and I'd love to hear more about the manifesto that's in place and how we can propel that in order to inspire that change that we want to see in the populace.
So if you are convinced by the UIC's manifesto and so on and everything else that you learned, you would be interested in signing up and joining the UIC, correct?
Correct.
Mr. Patterson, would you like to tell Ms. Burton the process in doing that?
Sure. But
more all Jamaicans can hear. So if they too want to join and come on board.
Absolutely. But more than that, though, I really loved her answer, because here's what she said a while ago, and this is very important. She said what we have to do. She used the word we. She never said you guys. Some people come on and they say what you guys have to do, but she understands, and it's a we thing, that she has to be a part of the solution as well. It's not just me or you or somebody else. It's we who have to do this. So what's the process? It's very simple. They go on our website, uicjamaica.com, click on register, and you just click on that and you put in your name, your telephone number, your address. You sign up as a member. You pay your membership dues. You go to the volunteer button and say, how would I like to help? You might want to help by joining this committee or that committee or whatever it is. And then you get involved from there. We're looking for people for every single aspect. You don't have to be running for office to make a difference. You can decide that you want to help, for example, with policy formulation, let's say on education, or maybe you want to help with campaign activities, or maybe you want to help with community service activities, So you can volunteer for anything, and the UIC is very open and receptive. All Jamaicans are welcome, as long as you agree with our fundamental principles and values, and that's very important. I mean, I'm going to try to share it with you, share a little bit of it with you here if possible. I don't know if my system will allow me, but Kevin, I'm going to try to bring on screen something that will quickly show Miss Burton and everyone our core values. I think we can call them. Let me see here. I hope this will work. Let me see here. Share. All right. So here is just a basic outline of our manifesto. I don't know if you can see. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. What do you notice about this logo, Miss Burton?
Partnership, unity.
Exactly. You see the hands coming together, right? And you see the shape of Jamaica. So Jamaica is bigger than the party. I want to tell you something about the UIC, which is very important. We're only a political party because of the existing system. We're really a Congress, a movement. And our goal is to get rid of partisan politics and replace it with something far more effective. And you'll see that as you look at our manifesto in a bit of detail. So our vision is a Jamaica that brings out the best in all its people. And our mission is equally important. Earlier on, I explained to you the critical reason why we say this. Can you agree, Ms. Burton, that the current system brings out the worst in us as a people? Do you agree?
Maybe not the worst, but it's not the best.
All right, maybe not the worst. You're so politically correct. My goodness. I when I see, okay, let me contextualize it for you. In the 1960s, we averaged around 66 murders per year. 66 murders per year in the 1960s. Do you know how much we average now per year? Murders.
Was it 1,000?
1,005, roughly, right? So to me, that's bringing out the worst in us. If we used to kill 66 of ourselves, and now we're operating at a war zone level. We're operating like a country at war when you look at the ratio of homicides to the population size. So Jamaica is at war, like in a civil war, based on the number of deaths we're having. Our school system fails 82% of our students every year, between 70 and 82%. Would you consider that something that's really, 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 really bad? 82%?
That is bad, yes.
Yeah. I mean, which country can afford to fail 82% of its citizens? Then do you like riding on our public transit system or public transportation system? Do you enjoy public transportation?
Oh, well, I can't say that I've had the privilege to enjoy it in quite some time. So
okay, well, most of us in Jamaica would hate driving on our public transportation system. I'm fortunate; I drive a car, so I don't have to. But I fear for my staff and anybody who has to go on the public transportation system normally. So there we go. Murder rate too high. Education system is failing. Public transportation. In your community, do you have a very nice community center with a gymnasium, a nice library, children play area facility that is nice and safe and decent, areas for the older kids to play comfortably? Do you have a garden attached to it, which is well maintained? You can go and sit on a Sunday evening or Sunday afternoon or Saturday Do you have that in your community?
No.
With public amenities, proper bathroom facilities and whatever? No. When you go
No.
into the town, do you have good public facilities there to use
Reasonably.
normally?
Yes. Yes.
Reasonably good? Okay, I'd
Yes.
love to see what you call reasonable. When you go into the market, when you go into the market, like you go to buy in the market, is it clean
Is it crowded? No.
and decent and well laid out and well managed and so on?
No.
No. So to me, and then do how do we solve conflicts? Do you find that our people are highly aggressive and antisocial and so on?
Yes.
Normally? Well, to
Yes.
me, that's bringing out the worst in our people. And
Mhm.
at political time, do you see us almost at the point of, in some cases, ready to kill each other? Are you impressed? Are you, what's the word now? Are you impressed and are you proud of the way our politicians behave in Parliament
No.
and on the campaign trail?
No.
Are you impressed with the dialogue we have among each other about our different parties? About, when you hear the green and orange talking to each other about their respective parties, about politics, is it something worthy to listen to? Is it,
No.
wholesome?
It's not
No.
elevating. No.
No. So for me, that means we're not bringing out the best in our people. We're bringing out the worst in them. So the UIC made it our top priority to transform Jamaica into a place that brings out the best in us rather than the worst. And our mission is to create a non-partisan constitutional republic. What on earth does that mean? Every word of this is crucial, Miss Burton, and all who are listening. Every word means something critical. Non-partisan mean we're designing a system that will remove us from being partisan to being policy driven, to being good governance focused. Not right now we fight based on our party. We can't see through any other lens but green or orange. We can't reason. We've lost our sanity just because of our party. So we have designed a system to remove that. And the way to remove that is by not outlawing parties, because people must be free to associate. So if you want to form a group and call yourself GLP or PNP or UIC, that's fine. But the governance system must not give credence to it. You must not elect a person or design a system that you're elected as a GLP or you're elected as a PNP. You must be elected as a representative of the people only. And
Yeah.
so your ballot must not have GLP or PNP on the ballot or UIC. Your seating arrangement in Parliament must not be by color, green on this side and orange on that side. Your campaign financing system must not be linked to the private sector with the richest people get to dictate who can be your candidate by virtue of it being a money system. So you make it a publicly financed system. So you remove that element that allows the richest people to control your parties and control your candidates. So the candidates now must be free of the influence or control of private money by having a 100% publicly funded system. But you have to have a qualification mechanism. And our qualification mechanism must focus on the person's content, your experience, your academic qualifications, your ability to get a certain number of the people in your community to say they wish to nominate you. Then you have to pass a good governance test to show that you understand governance. So that when you're
Okay.
elected, what is the point of having an MP who can't read statistical charts to analyze what's going on? You know
Mhm.
why we make so many bad contracts in Jamaica with outside forces like China, whatever? We make dumb decisions because many of our politicians are not competent. They don't
Mhm.
have the competencies. You don't go to a doctor for plumbing. You don't go to a plumber for medical
Medical.
services. So you cannot have politicians who are not competent
Mhm.
and skilled in the business of governance. So you must develop a system that allows those who have the competences and skills and who decide to apply themselves to the business of our governance to be the ones who get in. And then they can now manage the affairs of the country properly. So we have taken the time to build and design that system. And that's why we say it's a non-partisan system. Constitutional now is very important. What constitutional means is this. We don't want a system where it's based on the whims of men. So if you elect JLP, whatever they feel like doing, they do. If you elect PNP, whatever they feel like doing, that's what we have now. What you want is a constitutional system which says, no, there are certain parameters that are sacrosanct. You don't mess with them. You don't have any form of whoever you elect can mess with it. They want to concretize those fundamental rights and make them off limits. They want to limit government to its rightful sphere and protect the interest of the individual, the interest of the collective from this. So you make it what they call a constitutional republic. So it's based on the rule of law, and that rule must be so well designed and enshrined that you protect the interest of the individual from the collective and from the government. And then finally, republic. A republic means, if it's a true republic, there are many false republics in the world. For example, China is a false republic. Even America has become a false republic. Because a true republic is one that protects your fundamental rights at all times, not violating it during war or violating it during a pandemic or whatever, but one that protects your rights no matter what. So you're a sovereign individual. But I'm going to pause there. Let you get a word in. You might have heard something that piqued your interest and you want to say something about that.
No, I fully comprehend what you're saying.
Okay. I see somebody here writing the name of the person is Shut. It says, pure foolishness you're talking. Jamaica have never seen so much development. If you want people to follow you, first be honest to the people. You can't tear down others to elevate you. That's manipulation. I'm not sure who he's talking to or about because we're not here to tear down anybody. What the UIC does, which is very important, is to educate. But let's digress for a moment and talk about the developments taking place in Jamaica right now. The developments taking place in Jamaica right now is leading to Jamaicans becoming tenants in their own country. That's the development that's taking place right now. And when this development is finished, many of you who fail to see it because of your partisan lenses will find that you will be on the outside of those developments. You're going to have beautiful beaches that you can't access. You're going to have beautiful resorts that you cannot access. You can't even afford. You're going to have beautiful gated communities that you cannot venture into. You're going to just be looking from the outside and admiring, wow, what a lovely place. But you will not be admitted. It will be like the old days when we were suffering from some form of apartheid, where whites only. Only in this case, it will be rich only. And the rich will be few, and they will have all the access that you're calling development right now. And the poor will be outside begging a job or begging something. So don't be fooled by the so-called development. You want real development. And here's real development. Real development is if all of Jamaica look and feel like a tourist resort. Every community, properly paved streets, properly paved sidewalks, where when you're old and a shake, you can walk comfortably on the sidewalk with your walker or drive with your wheelchair and not tumble over. You want beautiful community parks where it's open to the public and it have proper and clean bathroom facilities, tennis courts, basketball courts, netball court, football field, cricket pitch, nice library, nice socializing picnic areas, beautiful spaces for the young kids, the toddlers and so on to go and play safely, areas for the bigger kids to play, somewhere you can go in a nice botanical garden attached to go and relax with. And by the way, all that I'm talking about is what is in Singapore. They became independent the same time as we in 1962, them in 1965, and within 25 years, them have all of what may I talk about, and we still not have it after 80 years under these two parties. So the development you're looking at is the wrong kind of development. You're looking at development which are making a few people very wealthy, and one that will exclude you from enjoying any of that development in the future. Yes, you might get a small janitorial job, and that's how you'll see on the inside. Yeah, Mr. Nelson, you want to jump in for a second?
No, I just wanted to say that the statement from Shut and your response is the difference between subjectivity and objectivity. I tell you a story. It's interesting that you mentioned about your response to Shut in terms of development, because I tell you, when I came back to Jamaica, I was looking for somewhere to have some kind of leisure, play some tennis and so forth. And I drive up all about Kingston. I can't find nowhere. Everywhere I see the Kingston KSA, Kingston St. Andrew Corporation, and I see the big sign, but the whole place is abandoned, grass growing, everything. And I tell you a joke. I went to one up by Avondale, and I saw a madman lying down in the park. KSA big sign, the grass, everything. I see a madman lying down. So I say, you know what? Let me just say something to the madman. I said to the madman, what happened to the park? Madman said to me, no, no, to the park, man. I enjoy the park, man. So it seems as if it's it's only for the madman, the quote unquote madman who can enjoy the park and stuff like that. But for hardworking Jamaicans who want to take their family to have some kind of leisure. No, I'm dead serious. You're right about that sort of development. It's problematic. And
Development is here's development. Here's what development would look like as well, Miss Burton. Supposing every child that is in university right now and college felt optimistic based on what they're seeing around them, that the course of study that they're taking, they'll be able to find an employment in that area at a salary level that will allow them to start a family and feel confident about their lives here in Jamaica. That's development. So right now, the typical young person who is going to UA or UTech or whatever, if they are looking out around them, they're not seeing a future here in Jamaica, most of them. When I talk to them, at least, maybe they tell you something different. When I talk to them, they don't see a future here. 9 out of 10 or 9.5 out of 10 expect that as soon as they finish, they want to leave the country. Why? Because they're not seeing a future here. Every time you go to the US Embassy, there's a long line of people waiting to leave. So if Jamaica was so great, if we were having development, you would not see a long line. Now, here's the reverse. Singapore continues to have a long line that want to come into its country. Do you know, Miss Burton, that Singapore is the size of St. Thomas? Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, the size of St. Thomas. Did you know that Singapore has almost 7 million people living in that space?
Oh, no.
And did you know that Jamaica has 15 times Singapore, but we only have under 3 million people living here? So we have 15 times Singapore, 15 times their size, but we have only about 2.8, 2.9 million. Now, why do we only have 2.8, 2.9? Not because our population wouldn't have grown. It's just that we have a lot of economic refugees abroad. Jamaica has 4 million Jamaicans living overseas because they can't make life here. Many of them would love to return home, but they're smart enough not to. I'm one of the dumb ones. They know that if they come back here, they face a few key things. One, poor public transportation, poor roads, poor healthcare system, and a poor economy. If you look at who is making the money in Jamaica, it's not the average Jamaicans who are making the money in Jamaica. We are not owning Jamaica. We're being owned in Jamaica. So what makes Jamaica operate are a few things. Jamaica get a large amount of remittances, okay? So we're getting a lot of unproductive income, meaning we're doing nothing to get the income. So a person just get up in the morning and say, warm auntie, send me a little something, and that's their productivity. They're not producing any product or services. If you go to the remittances in any of the parishes, every day there's a long line in the remittance center waiting to collect unearned income. So they're not doing anything productive at all in the country. They're not producing a grain of corn, one head of yam. They're producing nothing, but that money comes in, and that money facilitates consumption. Most of our production is now either completely outsourced to other countries like Trinidad, or the facilities owned by foreigners here in Jamaica. And what they do now is use their ownership level to do the importation. So they import under their import license and then push it into our market. Every year, our productivity goes down. And I'm going to give you a basic way for you to measure productivity. You can measure productivity very easily in Jamaica. Your exchange rate is an indication of your productivity, the US to the Jamaican dollar, because most exports are done in US dollars. So, for example, when our Jamaican dollar was 2 to 1, do you remember when Jamaican dollar was 2 to 1? Two Jamaican
Yes.
dollars to 1 US?
Yes.
So that's when we were most productive. Then it goes to 7 to 1. So our productivity has now dropped. So now it's $7 of our effort will buy $1. So
Mm-hmm.
your productivity has dropped. When it went to 22 to 1, that's a further reduction in your productivity. It takes 22 of your dollars to buy one of theirs, and it keeps going down. So now it's over 150, 155, 56 to 1. Why is that? Very simple. Exchange rate is determined by the difference between your export and your import, the ratio of the two. So
Right.
if your import continues to outstrip your export, the ratio gets bigger in a negative way. So it means your productivity is dropping. So Jamaica is not producing enough of anything to keep up with the continuous increase in importation. We're not exporting enough on the agricultural scene. We're not even doing so well on tourism, even though they give you great tourism numbers, because here's what's wrong with tourism. Because most of your tourism product is owned by foreigners, they are domiciled outside of Jamaica. So if they earn $20, for example, they
Right.
will then pay the payroll taxes out of that and pay the payroll staff out of that and any other.
Repatriate the rest. Mm-hmm.
They're going to repatriate that money now back out of Jamaica to their domicile country. So if it's
Right.
a Spanish company, go back to Spain, right? So you're not getting the full impact of your tourist dollar. If those tourist resorts were now owned by local Jamaicans, then all of that would have been here. On top of that, now those same tourist resorts, they import a lot of stuff, which means you're not buying from our local farmers
Yeah.
because our local farmers are not being developed adequately to provide consistent quality and reliable and dependable and all that kind of stuff, right? So all of these are actual developmental failures. So they mask those developmental failures by putting up buildings. So those who are short-sighted or myopic, those who can't see properly, was what big development that man look them and build a big building up there. So that's not development. Yes, it's a real estate development for the benefit of the developer, but nationally, that's not really a development that you should be happy about. Here's what development would have looked like. Suppose you find out that 80% of Jamaicans own 80% of the companies in Jamaica. Then that's development.
Mm-hmm.
If 80% of we own 80% of the shares of the companies in Jamaica, that's development. But when NCB has $8 billion in profit, that's not development, because it means there's a disparity between the income of the people who are slaving and losing all of whatever they're slaving for to NCB and the other commercial banks. So that's why during the COVID era, when all of us were suffering, all of us ordinary people were suffering, the banks still had massive profits. How is that possible? How can the economy be demolished, but they have massive profits? Because they are not connected to the life of the people. They're just extracting. They're not connected to the real economy of the people. They have a different level economy, which has been designed for them because they own and control the parties that make the policies that protects their interest while killing us in the process.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, from our panel, lady and gentlemen, and from our comments section, those who came online to support us, ladies and gentlemen, I think we had a good discussion tonight. I think it's a good place to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Lisa Burton, for coming on our live and contributing significantly. Really appreciate that. And we hope to see you
Again,
more in
yes.
the UIC from here onwards.
With,
Love
with
to see
better
more.
lighting, so we can see you more clearly.
Okay.
And thank you as always, Mr. Patterson, for
My pleasure, my
your
pleasure.
knowledge and your solid take and commitment to our nation, Jamaica.
Well, how did Miss Burton find the conversation? Was it useful? Was it beneficial? Did you learn anything?
Oh, yes, for sure.
Okay, all right, good. People online, did you learn anything tonight? Was it useful, beneficial? Give us a grade. We'd love to grade Mr. Nelson, and what his production. So if he did very well, give him 100. If he did so well, give him something less than 50. Feedback is very important. In my professional development over my life, I have always welcomed feedback. Life is about feedback, and if you don't welcome feedback, you don't grow.
Likewise.
So tell us where we're doing well and tell us where we're doing poorly. Challenge me on anything. If there's anything I've said that you think is inaccurate or inappropriate or whatever, feel free. I am very, very confident, and so I'm not afraid of negative feedback. Tell me anything. And if you're telling me foolishness, I'll be able to know that it's foolishness because, I can tell those who are just being partisan. Like some people come on and say, yeah, try to tear down. I'm not tearing down anybody. I'm lifting up Jamaica. And one of the things we have to do to lift up Jamaica is to be honest. And if we're honest, we'll all know that we have given these two guys, these two institutions, enough time. And so when my good friend Mark Golden said, time come, I agree with him. But time come to tell the two of them time up.
I like that. Time up. Well, there you go. We got some hundreds. Carol Spence 100, Kirk 100, CMN. Yes, it was. Mr. Nelson, Rockwell Madison 100. Love you guys at CMN. Kirk, informative as usual. Well, thank you guys. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Excellent. Have a good night, everyone. Until next
You
time.
as well. Thank
Pleasure
you.
meeting you. All the
Same
best.
here. Okay.
Okay.
Take care. Good.
Night, Kevin.